taking a breather from fierce house-to-house combat in the city of Homs. The front line is just around the corner, and many of these soldiers have been fighting here for months. The Syrian military has been fighting urban combat for over 2 years now. None of the soldiers here are willing to speak to us on camera because they say they need special permission, but they assure us that their morale is not waning. Between frontline clashes and manning checkpoints, Syria's army is strained and stretched thin, but still appears mostly combat ready. Much has been reported about abuses committed by soldiers fighting for the Assad regime, like the indiscriminate use of heavy weapons in urban areas, including tanks, artillery, and warplanes. The United Nations says both the Syrian army and opposition forces have committed war crimes and crimes against humanity. In Homs, this family grieves for a son. This was 19-year-old Ali Suleiman, a soldier killed a week ago. His mother says Ali's body still hasn't been brought back from the front. Him on the front lines was painful for me, she says, but I was with him hand in hand defending this country. I handed him to God, a sacrifice for the homeland. The Syrian regime says its army is on the offensive against opposition forces. But this army is also suffering heavy casualties. We were given access to the military hospital in Homs, the most recent batch of wounded hit by a suicide bomber at an army base. Survivors said about 20 soldiers were killed. The first explosion was at the gate, he says. We went out and it was awful seeing our comrades on the ground. As we went out, a second car came. We opened fire, but he drove into the building. The explosion caused the whole building and residential houses to collapse. A senior doctor says the medical teams here are increasingly dealing with severe burns, the result of improvised explosive devices used by growing numbers of Islamist extremists. It's the same terrorism the Europeans and Americans faced in Iraq and Afghanistan, he says, and allowed the French to fight outside their country in Mali. They insist on not seeing it here, despite all the casualties and destroyed homes. The international community says Syria's army has committed many atrocities, but in its ranks, many soldiers have also paid the ultimate price, defending a regime that's fighting for survival. Fred Pleitgen, CNN, Homs, Syria.